Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're so glad you're here. My name is Ed, and I'm here with Lyndsay, and I'm hoping that you joined us for last week, because if you joined us for last week, I would imagine that you're still waiting to hear what happened, because we never really talked about it, exactly what happened last week. So there was an incredible event that just happened recently that you were part of, you and Brooke. And so, Lyndsay, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and let's see if we can pick up a little bit where we left off last week. If you didn't listen to last week, I really suggest go back and listen to it, because it'll tee you everybody up for today.
Yeah.
So you guys planned an incredible event for young adults. Maybe give us a summary of why did this happen, and let's talk about what you did.
Yeah. So I want to include people if they're like listening for the first time too.
Okay.
Again, go back and listen to last week because that'll give you a lot of context. But essentially, Brooke and I created this young adults space for people from across Midland and the surrounding counties to find a place to meet and build community, to grow together, to connect with one another, and like to really take time and build that, because there's not a whole lot here in Midland that is that space. I mean, we see a ton of questions in like Facebook groups of like, where do you go to meet people in your 20s and 30s? Where do you go that's not a bar to meet them? Where do you go that's not whatever? And there is essentially nothing.
So people don't have a place to go.
No.
I mean, like if young adults wanted to meet with young adults or go hang out with young adults, there's no place to go.
Not a clue. Not a clue. So Brooke and I, we had met one day, and this has been something that I have been praying for years and years and years, have made attempts at trying to start something, was contemplating, do I give up this dream? I've been going at it for like 3 or 4 years now. Or do I just keep chasing after it? Like, when do you just give up? And so I met with Brooke, and we were meeting to talk for no particular reason other just to chat. And we both were just like empathizing with one another of, we had both gone away to college and found community that like knew us so deeply and like was always inviting new people in. Like it was an incredible community. And we moved back to Midland, and there was nothing. And we were both both incredibly discontent with the scene for young adults in Midland. And so after kind of just like empathizing with one another for a while, we both were like, do you think that maybe we should start something? And so from them, we were like, okay, I think so.
And that was recent.
Very recent.
Like a month ago?
Yes,
How long was
less
that?
than a month ago.
Okay, so this is all started within a month.
Yes.
Okay, I think there's a good lesson there for places, for churches too.
Yeah.
You don't need a year planning to do something.
No.
Sometimes you need just a short amount of time to do it.
Yes.
Why
I'm just like, please, for goodness sakes, we don't need a whole year of planning. Yeah.
Okay, so a month ago, you guys decided you're going to do something with young adults.
Yeah, and we probably could have jumped on it sooner, but we wanted to give people some like heads up to put it on their calendars.
Okay, I think we're going to lose our listeners unless we finally tell them what you did last night. So let's scan ahead, talk about where did you meet?
Yeah.
And then what did you do for your first event?
We met at it was really important that we had a neutral place to meet. And so
Why is that important?
Because if you are a believer at another church and you plan something at your church, other believers from other churches will probably not come. You feel like you're betraying your church, and it's not an accessible or welcoming place for the unbeliever to interact.
Okay. So you created a place, or you found a place that's central.
And we wanted it to be a group for the community that believers were invited to participate in as well.
Okay.
And so the place was called Grove Street Chapel. It's actually like pretty cool. It's a chapel. It started as a church. A lot of churches of Midland have been born out of that building. They start there, they become too big, and they grow out. And So now it's Caregiving Network, which, can you explain what Caregiving Network is?
Well, Caregiving Network is just an organization that is the whole community can participate, and they do food, they do clothing, and there's so much more that I think they're capable of doing in the community.
Yeah.
But they're neutral. There's no
great.
specific church that's
Right.
A church initially started it, but then turned it over to a whole different 501c3.
So their office building, they have like offices in this chapel, and it still has like the original, like, stained glass and the chapel feel. They renovated the basement.
It's an old church.
Yes, very, like over 100 years old.
It's over 100 years old, I believe.
Yes. And so
right in the middle of a community.
Right in the middle of downtown. So it's equidistant to like everything in Midland. Renovated the basement. It's really, really nice. There's like a kitchen back there and like a hangout spot. And so I had mentioned to Brooke, I was like, okay, Steve Lampy, who is at Messiah, he's a pastor at Messiah now. And he just got ordained. That's why I say he's a pastor now.
Has a nice ring to it.
Yeah. So he is the president of Caregiving Network.
Yes.
And so I told Brooke, I was like, I bet you Steve would let us use the building if I asked. I was like, would you be interested in that being a space? And I've been wanting to use that space for a long time, but every group I bring this up to, like, they've said no. I don't understand why, but she was like, I would love that. That'd be awesome. So I asked Steve, and he was like, yep, we'll get you keys. And I was like, easy as that? That
was easy.
So awesome. So he's like, it's yours. Like, you guys can hang lights, whatever you want to do in there. Like, the building is yours, which was also, I can't wait to talk about that from last night too. So we met at the chapel, and we did a popcorn bar, had everybody bring your own toppings. We did board games.
They bring?
There actually weren't that many toppings. There was M&Ms and gummy worms. And then people brought like little seasoning packets to go on top of it. And actually not a whole lot of people ate the popcorn.
Oh, really?
Which is funny because I think that is just like, people didn't come for the popcorn. They came because they were longing for community.
That's funny because you said the other day, oh my goodness, we're going to have to get a lot of extra popcorn.
Oh, we have popcorn for years. Years. So I went to GFS and got like this industrial size bag of popcorn and all the oil and stuff.
And didn't use it.
We used probably 16th of it. So, but that was awesome. And we did board games. It was like super muggy outside last night. And so the original plan was popcorn and yard games. But we were like, let's stay inside. It feels really good out here. So we did board games. And then eventually people were like, do you think you want to maybe go outside? So then we did. And we went outside until the sun set and past that. And event started at 6 p.m. and I got home around 10. And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So I don't know if you want to unpack that now or...
I'd love to hear more about it. Okay. Because I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah. So showed up and there were 25 people there last night.
Okay.
Which I think was still incredible. Like we had 100 people join the Facebook group. And so Brooke and I were both like, this is a complete toss up. We have no idea who's going to be coming to this. We went to the chapel the night before and spent like an hour praying over it, anointing it. We prayed over the park that we were going to be at, just walked the perimeter. And that was just incredible. And even like in that moment, we were just like, Lord, this is 100% you. Like, this has felt so easy. This has felt like we're just showing up and allowing you to do whatever you are going to do this night. And so we both felt such peace going into it, which for me going into events, because I hate planning, is like, I just hate showing up for events. And once they start, I'm fine because we go with the flow. But like, I'm like, there are all of these details that I really don't care about. And, but going into last night, her and I both were just like, all right, like this will be what it will be. And it was so chill. And we were
you were just hanging out waiting for people to show up. And then you started showing up.
Yeah, started showing up.
And how was it? What was, when everybody came in, what was kind of the mood? What was the curiosity? What was it?
I think there was curiosity. Okay. I think there was excitement. I think there was nervousness was a really big one, because a lot of people showed up last night alone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there were maybe like, and there was a brother and sister. There were a couple like husband, wife. There was like a couple, like 2 friends. Everybody else showed up alone. And so that was like,
That's scary to show up to a place like that.
Yes.
All
And
by yourself.
what was so interesting is like the first people started rolling in, and immediately something Brooke pointed out to me the night before, which if you guys can do this, like listeners, to anybody else, I think it is so impactful when you recognize somebody else's gift, because like it might not be something that they see in themselves. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I am this way. I am good at this. I do enjoy doing this. And so if you can do that for someone, I feel like it just like equips them so much better for whatever you're going to be doing.
So explain how that played out last night.
Yeah. So the night before, Brooke had said, she was like, I've noticed that you have a gift of like hospitality. She's like, I don't think I've ever met anybody that like truly actually has this gift in a way that like when people are with you, like they feel wanted, like they truly feel wanted, and like one-on-one, like you want them there. And so
you were at the door, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, we were both in the basement actually,
Okay.
but we had a note come down. But like, I felt like that was like my mission, was like everybody walking in the door. It felt like I had this like superpower to be like, okay, who are you? What's your story? Like, where do you, like, what do you do? And then like connecting dots of like, hey, this person does this thing. And so eventually everybody's in this group, and we're doing names, we're doing games, we're waiting for everybody to trickle in. And it was funny because at the end of the night, like almost everybody had said like, I was so scared to come alone. And I was so scared when I walked through that door because everybody knew each other. And I was like, no, nobody knew each other. And they were like, wait, what? And so over the course of the night, they had learned like, oh, really? I showed up. Nobody knew each other. And everybody just was immediately connected and had that like natural, organic connection with one another, where it felt like you walked into a group that had been friends their whole lives, or at least had like been in the same places.
Wow.
But they were just, I don't know, like the Lord was there. The Lord was there. And it was fun to hear like, you know, where did you hear about this event? And there were people like, oh, my friend in Claire sent it to me. And then another friend in Mount Pleasant, I had 3 different people send me this thing.
Wow.
Somebody else saw it on Facebook. Somebody saw it in a Facebook group. People were talking about it at their school buildings. Cause we had like a teacher come, a middle school teacher. And so it was just kind of like talk amongst everything. I went to like a spike ball game the Monday night, like earlier this week. And I only knew like one person there, and there were 20 people there. Everybody knew that this was happening.
Wow.
And so word just spread incredibly fast. And so it was really cool to hear like how the Lord had got it into people's hands.
And out of, you said there was about 1,000 people that this was shared with. So I mean,
Like
quite
2,000.
a few people, 2,000 people heard about it.
Yep.
And then so 25 people came, but that's amazing. And it was just something that was started. So if you would pause for a minute, what would you say to churches at this point who are thinking about something like this? What should they do?
I said this in the last episode, but I'll say it again, is like, just start. Because like you can get stuck in those cycles of planning and planning and planning. And now I don't remember if I said it in this episode or the last one, but I'll say it again, I guess.
Okay.
Is like, I just felt over this whole thing. Every time I've prayed about it, the Lord was just like, no agenda. Like, don't get trapped in the agenda. And so even like Brooke and I, we were talking about like, when do we start this? And we had met like, I think 3 weeks ago, and we were like, okay, let's start it mid-June. And then we're like, that even feels too far away. Like, we have to set something closer, otherwise this won't happen. And so we set the date for yesterday, and I guess now we're exposing ourselves on timeline too, because by the time people will listen to this,
timestamped it.
I did.
So it'll be about 3 months late.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah. And so
it was just something that you talked about, you planned, and you launched it about 3 weeks after inception.
Yes.
Which is pretty amazing.
And even last night, like we were sharing this story with people, because almost every person at some point in the night asked, So why did you start this again?
Oh,
And so
why were people interested in that question? You said that when it came in.
yeah, because
Everybody asked you the why.
yeah, and like we shared from the beginning, like why we created this group.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that we said at the beginning was I said, you gave me this suggestion, but I said, it is on every single person in this room tonight to make everybody feel welcomed. Because I had expressed to you like a couple days before, like, what if 100 people show up and I want everybody to feel so included and I'm only one person and I know human nature is to stay with the people you're comfortable with. What if somebody's on the outskirts? And so had said, like, if you guys at any point tonight see somebody on the outskirts, if you see someone not engaged in conversation, if you see someone not involved, it's not on just me, it's not on just Brooke, it is on every single one of you to make everybody feel so radically welcome tonight.
And how did they respond to that?
Everyone was like, not like, yes, like everyone was nodding their heads in agreement of like, almost like it felt like a thank you for saying that, because it felt like if I had not said that, human nature would have taken over and they would have split off into their groups. Too. And like,
for
it's like
you to do it. Like,
yes.
Hey, somebody's not doing anything. Shouldn't you be doing this?
And it felt almost like they needed permission to be like, you can do this. Like, we are all in this together. We are all building community. This is an ache I think all of us have. Like, it's on you. Another really interesting thing that happened last night was at the beginning I had said, like, you know, people walked in and they were kind of just like looking around, checking out the place briefly, and then mostly like engaging with one another. And I was like, all right, guys, like this building is kind of ours. Like, we're using it from Caregiving Network. They're allowing us to use this building, but they're letting us use it in a way that's like, if you want to hang lights, hang them. If you want to put rugs out, do it. Whatever you want to do to this space, make it yours. And like, when I said that, I noticed at that point, people were like, oh, and like, they really started looking around. Like, it changed their perspective from like, what's this place about to like, what could we do with this place? And dreaming up
of it.
Yes. And so I'm like even imagining from here on out, like, it's like, okay, let's have a jar and everybody like pitch in any type of donation. And okay, great. We got enough money. Let's get string lights. Great. We got enough money. Let's get a rug. Great. We got enough money. Maybe paint. I got to ask Steve about that. But yeah, it's just like creating that, getting a neutral space to make it your own and giving ownership, I think was huge.
So when are you meeting again?
In 2 weeks. So June 19th.
Okay.
Another.
You're timestamping it.
I'm timestamping it. I can't help it.
By the time they listen to it, it's too late for them to participate. Yeah. So that's okay. Hopefully it'll still be going in September.
A really cool thing was like last night we were all standing talking. The sun was setting. We couldn't play spike ball or cornhole anymore because we couldn't see anything. So we're just chatting and people are like, okay, so how often is this going to be? And we were like, it'll be bi-weekly Wednesdays. And they were like, could maybe we do it once a week? And someone said, could we do it twice a week?
Wow.
And we were like,
hungering.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we said, Brooke and I we like looked at each other and we just had like the biggest eyes for all night. We were just like, this is happening.
Yeah.
And we said, we will for sure plan something bi-weekly on Wednesdays. But the group page was created very intentionally for people to participate on it. So you can go in and post something yourself. So it's like, if you guys want to do a movie night, like throw in there movie night, anybody want to come? If you want to go to the farmer's market, throw it in there. If you want to go to something that's already happening, if you want to go to this arts festival in Bay City over the weekend, throw it in there. Like, we can make this a thing that is like building friendships. And like, that's kind of what I shared at the beginning of the night too, is like, you can't enter into this space expecting to find like immediate solutions to like loneliness or friendship. Like, community takes time to build. It's not just like found, it has to be foraged. It has to be poured into. You have to like reinvest into it week after week. So like, you have to take time invested into it. So like, this is yours and it's on you to like plug into this.
So you're going to do events every 2 weeks. That'll be more or less a scheduled event.
Yes.
And then anything that anybody else wants to do to say, hey, come for movie night. That's whoever wants to be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost like a clearinghouse too.
Yeah.
If you want community, it's probably going to start happening, and people are going to be jumping in different things.
Yeah. It was
So
kinda,
what else did you do last night? So there was board games, there was popcorn,
yeah.
sorta.
Yep. Yeah, we did. And then eventually we went over and walked over to a park and we played spike ball, cornhole, frisbee. People were just talking. I was talking. I was probably the oldest person there. So it was me, I'm 27. And then there were a couple other, like 2 other 27, well, a few others. And so it was kind of funny because at one point I was talking with these 2 other people who were 26, 27. And I looked over and there was a group of like 5 or 6 girls, and I knew that none of them knew one another. And I looked over and they were all taking a picture together.
Oh, wow.
And I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so sweet. And these like 27-year-olds are like, that was such a mom thing that you just did. And I was like, dang it, I just exposed myself as the old person of this group.
Old, 27. Yeah. All right, let's talk about that.
But it was so cool because they were all exchanging numbers. They were all like adding each other on Snapchat. So I got a lot of their social media stuff. And what was really cool afterwards too is we like a couple people, like they all headed out, and then there were people that like, do you need help cleaning up?
Wow.
And so people stayed, they like helped really, really clean up the place. And I got home at 10 and then I called Brooke, and Brooke and I talked for like, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And then I was up until 2 a.m. because I just like, I couldn't stop thinking about it and like was just so thankful. And like Brooke and I said, it felt like God organized a play date for all of his kids. And like you have the people who are
so
like,
funny, play date.
Yeah, we joked about that earlier.
We did joke about that. As a boomer, that's just like, what? A play date?
Yeah, you guys got to you were free range chickens. We had to have our moms call our friends' moms, and then they would talk, and we would coordinate schedules.
No, we never did that when I was a kid. Yeah.
So it was really neat. And I was looking at like, there were a couple people that had posted like stories is what they call them.
Really?
Do you know what a story is?
Oh.
Okay, so it's you can either post something that's just like on your page, your social media page, and then a story is what you post and it goes away within 24 hours. So it's on there, it's like people are posting on stories a lot. They're doing like videos, they're showing like what they're doing. I could do a story right now and be like, we're podcasting right now, and then it's on my story for 24 hours and it's off.
Wow.
So people had recorded videos of themselves like on their story, doing what's called a vlog. I feel like I'm educating. Do you know what a vlog is? You are educating me.
I don't know what any of this is.
Okay, a vlog is a video blog. So it's like taking a phone out in selfie mode and being like, hey, Lyndsay here. I'm in the podcast studio with Ed. And so like a couple people had taken videos explaining like what happened that night.
Wow.
And people sharing like, I just went to this really awesome group. It's called Awake 989 is what we called it. We based it off of.
What is it? Awake Night at 9?
Awake 989. Oh. So we base it off of Ephesians, like wake up, you sleeper, like like those who are in the light, like exposes darkness. And 989 being the area code of Midland. And so, a lot of people had like jumped on saying like, hey, I just got back from this really awesome group. It's called Awake 989. You need to join. I tagged it. Like we just had this super awesome night. I was super nervous going into it. I didn't know anybody. And I walked away with like 5 people's numbers. And we have we're going to go play pickleball tomorrow. And just like stuff where I'm like, what is happening? Like this is way beyond what I even like imagined the night to go. Even if like I was thinking in my mind, like either no one shows up or 100 people show up. And like, I think this is so much better than even if like any more than 25 showing up, because like God knew exactly who was going to be there that night. And like their comfortability with one another and walking away with friendships. And having people there that were really solid in their faith, and having people there that like were not did not have a faith. It was truly incredible, and the ease of it of just showing up. Like I had shared with this group, a couple people in the night who had just asked like, so why did you do this again? Like where did this start? So again, that's a principle we talk about is don't lead with like the Jesus card, but that question
Explain that,
comes.
unpack that, because some people might be like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a question we have in all of our community ministries. It's like we have grocery stores and it's like, at what point do you tell them about Jesus? Or at what point do you have Bible studies for your staff members? Or at what point do you like pray with somebody? Or when do they know that you are a Jesus follower? And it's like, our job is not to convert people that are walking in those doors. Our job is to love them and to be unashamedly yourself. And they will ask why you're doing this and why you're here, and who you are. And they did. Almost every single person at some point in the night asked that.
And so how did you answer it, or how did Brooke answer that?
I guess I'm not sure how Brooke answered it because we were kind of just spread out.
Okay.
But I think the beauty of last night is it could be a really long conversation over spike ball and cornhole and just sharing like exactly what I've shared in this podcast and last is like we created it because we found community and moved back and didn't have it. Yeah. And I think this is such a unique time, and I've loved, like I've been led into ministry in this way. And so I think that people can find a community that is just like so wholesome and fun and all that. And eventually the questions come up of like, what do you do for work? And I work for a church. And oh, cool. Like, what church? What does your church do? Oh, your church serves a community in this way. Wow, that's super awesome. And like, where did you find a faith? Like, where did that start for you? And that conversation just happens, I think, because of who I am. And I think for listeners, because of who you are. And so it doesn't have to be a 30-second elevator pitch of who Jesus is. That comes with time. And that happened with people last night too, that I was like, okay, you don't know who Jesus is, but you know that I do. And I can't wait to see you again next week. And and
I bet everybody was comfortable with that because you didn't do a bait and switch. And maybe we should just explain that would be when, we told them it's for community, but no, we're going to do something else and surprise everybody. So it sounds like you just were true to yourself, brought everybody together, seeking community. You built community and you let it just go organically. And God usually opens up amazing doors.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a couple of when I was sharing some of that story with people last night of like feeling like I had shared like the burden of planning and how previous groups were like, all right, we need a mission statement. We want values. We want like branding, all this stuff.
To get together for Spike Ball, you got to have all that, right? It's really important.
And like the response was like, they were like, what? And they were like, no, this is great. Like we're just hanging out.
That's it.
And I think like churches are asking like, where are young adults at? Where are the young people at? And I just got to see like a taste of that last night. And as Brooke and I were chatting afterwards and debriefing, and we're like, God gave us a building. He gave us a church. He gave us a building that many churches have started out of. And how cool is it that like this group of young adults is starting out of the place that so many ministries began? How many prayers have happened in that building? How many people have prayed over that building? How many people did the same thing we did the night before and prayed over it for an hour? And like, God just gave that to us. Yeah. And he gave the response. And like me as a marketing person, it's like you start a brand new page and you do the first post and it gets nothing. And it gets nothing for like, it feels like 100 posts after that. And to have like the first, like we showed up, filmed this video and like one take, posted it, and it immediately got 100 people to like that had joined the group saying that they were interested, to then people showing up, 25 people last night showing up, to then them saying like, my friend wanted to come. We were talking about it at my school. We were talking about it at my job. It's like, okay, the Lord is doing something here. And it was such a privilege to like, to be a part of it and to witness it. And we had a group of pastors up this week and we stood on like empty ground.
Okay. So before you go on, I want to talk more about that because now you're dreaming about future.
Yes.
So we did. Talk about who is this group and what did they come for?
So it was a group of pastors from across the state. We had some folks from Grand Rapids, from
Just pastors?
East Sides. Pastors, we had elders, board members, we had spouses of said people, we've had volunteers, we had
leaders, business people.
We had people
It was a big group.
take the day off of work to come for this. So
there was 47 people that came.
Yes.
And this was kind of an impromptu that we invited them to go to a piece of ground, an empty piece of ground.
Yeah. And so,
and they all wanted to go. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well, real quick,
Go ahead.
I mean, they come and we present for like an hour and a half, like all of the principles and stuff that we've talked about on the podcast so far. And then we bring them around to all of the different community ministries that currently exist, that have a brick and mortar building. And we show them how the principles are applied. So what we did like this past time was we brought them to Bare Ground, where we have a dream. I don't know if you want to explain that or...
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
It was impromptu. We just said, hey, before we go to the next place, would you like to go stand in a dream?
We'd never done this before.
No, we haven't.
And so all 47 people went and stood on this like property on this busy street where we have a dream to have a coffee house and a pub for young adults. To have a place where they can call theirs and a place for them to do whatever ministry looks like for them, like whether that is serving, whether it's gathering for just a social event, whether that's having worship there, and for it also to just be a place for the community, because there's a high school just down the road, to come and really have a place where they can feel at home and feel safe and connect and gather, because there's not really like a whole lot on that side of town. So we stood on this like empty ground and we prayed over it and we shared this dream. And I've been sitting in these feelings recently of like, it's such a cool like space to be in something where there's nothing, because it feels like you want to preserve it, because it just feels like God is going to do something so, so big. And I want to hold on just to remember, and like 10 years from now, and 5 years from now, and a year from now, to be like, do you remember when we stood on that completely flat ground of just like rubble and like prayed over it? Or like Brooke and I, the night before the event, we both were like, this is the quiet before the storm. Like, just let's sit in this and remember all of the feelings of anticipation and excitement of like what God's gonna do, and like remember this moment, because now on the other side of it does feel, it's like, remember when we gathered and prayed over an empty building in an empty park, and we had 25 young adults show up, and the most incredible connections and conversations happened.
You're highlighting a couple things I want you to say a little bit more. So when we went to that ground, first of all, I don't know how you felt. I almost felt like I wouldn't take my shoes off, like I was standing on holy ground.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that. But it was a dream, and I think everybody in the group really appreciated it because it wasn't seeing something that was already in existence.
Yes.
And I find the timing of this really interesting. Of this group is there, and then we asked one of the pastors from Grand Rapids, would you pray? And he did. He prayed over that ground, that if this is where God had a young adults ministry in the future, that this is where we think it might be. And here you guys start 2 days later, and just a place where a lot of ministry has started over the years.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing when you think about it.
The timing, yeah, it's incredible. Even Brooke and I were saying last night, we were like, it just feels like God is saying like the ground is ready for harvest. And we didn't intentionally think of the timing of anything. It just happened.
It's all organic.
And even like last night, it's like we had some 18-year-olds say like, I just graduated high school yesterday or whatever.
wow.
And we're like, okay. And we had someone from Texas come, and she was like, I just moved back home from college, and I have been looking for community. And so it's like the timing of it is like, I didn't even think to plan something when people would be home from college or graduating high school or being done with semesters. I'm like, I think I'm now on the rotation. I'm no longer thinking of my life in academic years, but calendar years now. And so I'm like, I didn't even think about that as timing, but like the Lord had that in mind.
God knew.
Yeah.
Knew that they would be hungering, and you were ready. I don't even know where to begin what we would tell churches. What would you, I mean, I have something that I'd like to share about that ground.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is just maybe a shout out. Somebody maybe listened to this. And we went and stood in this ground. We don't own it. It's for sale. We have no money, but we have a big dream. We have a big dream to create this this place. Like you said, for young adults, that would be a place of worship, connecting. We would create a place that's like a living room for kids before school or after school to feel like they're home. If their mom says, you know, hey, I'm going to drop you off at the coffee house or take the bus, go to the coffee house, and I'll pick you up there afterwards. And then in the evening, just great conversation over a glass of beer or a glass of wine. So we're going to keep it pretty simple. But if anybody out there, I would just give the shout out. If anybody's like, you know what, I would love to help with that. We don't have a dollar for it. And I think this is probably about a $7 million dream. But I think it's going to be an amazing place someday when God raises up a building and has an incredible ministry that doesn't really look like, who would think, a pub and a coffee house, that God will do something amazing. But who would have thought he would have done what he did to last night with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you suggest? Everybody's probably listening like, okay, this is incredible. Good for you. This is awesome. This is amazing. It's Beyond the Breakwater. I mean, that was the whole design, right? To be missional beyond the breakwater. What would you suggest to churches to do?
Last week I suggested to start something. And I think you're going to be fighting everything in you to have a plan and to have all of the stuff listed out, the trainings, the mission statements, the branding, like ditch all of it. Maybe, I don't know, like just start with something and like see what could happen from there. I mean, I'm thinking specifically young adults because I know that is something churches are struggling with a lot right now. They're asking it again and again. We did that series of like Gen Z, millennial, and had responses. We've had groups come up and be like, I identified with that so much. What do we do about it? And like, the reason I'm saying no agenda is because I think you'll fight this feeling of the event won't be successful if people don't come to our church afterwards. Because I think if I had to guess at the heart of your hearts, that's what you are wanting. You're struggling with young adults because they're not in your church. But I think you have to be okay with young adults for now, like interacting in a space that is not the church, even if like they are believers or are unbelievers. Like you can't have an agenda with the end goal in mind being, we'll see you on Sunday mornings.
That's really powerful. That's a change, that you're not doing something with young adults in order for them to come to your church. You're saying, let's go into a place or a space where it's okay to have a great ministry in town. They may never get connected with a local, I want to say local organized church, but actually it's the church that doesn't really look like a church is what happened last night. So actually you started a church last night and don't even realize it.
It's crazy.
Pretty amazing. Crazy. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we can't wait to see you till next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.